Imagine sitting down to a meal that looks perfectly ordinary: a plate of vegetables, a handful of beans, a few leaves from the backyard, and not realizing that what you just ate is quietly shaping the number your doctor circles on your next blood test. After 50, that number stops being a background detail. Your body may handle sugar differently than it once did, and the foods growing just a few steps from your kitchen can become some of the most useful tools on your plate. Subscribe to the Homestead Gardener, because every week we dig up forgotten foods, overlooked plants, and old wisdom that modern research is finally beginning to understand. Today, we are walking through 20 garden foods with meaningful, research-backed connections to steadier blood sugar. Not magic, not cures, but practical foods that may support healthier glucose control as part of an overall diet. And one of the final entries has been studied repeatedly in human trials. Let us start digging. Food 1. Okra, the slippery pod, hiding serious science. We are starting with okra because it has attracted more research attention than most people realize. Those long green pods are packed with soluble fiber and a gel-like substance called mucilage. That slippery texture some people complain about may actually be one of the most useful parts of the plant. Soluble fiber and mucilage can slow digestion. One reason researchers have investigated okra for glucose control. Multiple randomized trials and several research reviews have reported improvements in fasting blood glucose, and some analyses have also found changes in HbA1c, the longer-term measure doctors use to evaluate average blood sugar. Honesty matters here. Many of those studies used okra powder, capsules, or concentrated preparations rather than an ordinary serving of roasted pods. A side dish should not be treated as equivalent to a clinical dose. But okra still earns its place because it combines fiber, low carbohydrate content, and a realistic way to replace heavier foods on the plate. To grow it, wait until the soil is genuinely warm. Okra loves full sun and the kind of heat that makes many garden crops wilt. Pick the pods young, usually around 3 inches long, before they become tough and woody. Harvest frequently, because the more pods you remove, the more the plant tends to produce. Slice okra into soups and stews, where the mucilage naturally thickens the broth, or roast the pods whole at high heat for a firmer texture. Anyone using glucose-lowering medication should be careful about relying heavily on concentrated okra products, because their effects may add to medication. Food 2. Dry beans, the most dependable blood sugar staple in the pantry. Pinto, black, kidney, navy, and other dry beans are not glamorous, but they may be among the most reliable foods on this entire list. They combine slow-digesting carbohydrate, soluble fiber, resistant starch, and plant protein in one inexpensive package. In a well-known controlled trial, people with type 2 diabetes who followed a low glycemic diet that included roughly a cup of legumes each day experienced a meaningful improvement in HbA1c over several months. That does not make beans a replacement for treatment, and the entire eating pattern mattered, but it shows how powerful one consistent dietary shift can become. Beans digest slowly. Instead of delivering a rapid flood of carbohydrate, they release energy over time. A typical half-cup serving can provide several grams of fiber and enough protein to keep a meal satisfying. That combination may help reduce the sharp rise and fall that leaves people tired and hungry shortly after eating. Grow bush beans when you want a compact, fast harvest, or train pole beans vertically when space is limited. Leave some pods on the vine until they become dry and brittle. Then shell the beans and store them for winter. A small packet of seed can become jars of food that last for months. Soak dried beans, drain the soaking water, and cook them thoroughly until completely tender. Raw or undercooked kidney beans are especially unsafe because they contain high levels of a natural lectin that can cause severe digestive illness. Beans are not a miracle. They are something more useful, a proven, affordable staple that works meal after meal. Food 3. Lentils, the 20-minute swap that changes the whole meal. Lentils belong to the legume family, but their greatest advantage is not that they behave exactly like beans. It is that they make one of the easiest replacements for foods that create a much sharper glucose response. Replace part of a serving of white rice, pasta, or mashed potatoes with lentils, and you change the structure of the entire meal. Lentils contain fiber, resistant starch, and protein, but they cook in roughly 20 to 30 minutes and require no overnight soaking. Research examining pulse-based meals has repeatedly found gentler after-meal glucose responses when lentils replace faster digesting carbohydrates. That is the most useful way to think about them. Their value is not simply that lentils are healthy on their own, it is what they push off the plate. Cooked lentils also become useful cold. When starchy foods are cooked and cooled, part of their starch can become more resistant to digestion. That does not erase the carbohydrate, but it may slightly change how quickly the body handles it. A chilled lentil salad with vegetables, herbs, and a sharp vinaigrette can therefore be a practical make-ahead lunch. Lentils grow best in cooler conditions and prefer well-drained soil. Harvest when the lower pods turn brown and begin to rattle. For most home gardeners, however, keeping a jar of dried lentils in the pantry is the easiest place to begin. Did your family cook dried beans or lentils when you were young? Or did that habit disappear somewhere along the way? Tell me in the comments, because those ordinary kitchen traditions are often worth bringing back. Food 4. Spinach, the leaf that supports the long game. A bowl of spinach has very little direct effect on blood sugar because it contains so little digestible carbohydrate. Its value appears in what it adds and what it replaces. Population research has linked higher intake of leafy green vegetables with a lower risk of developing type 2 diabetes, although these studies show association rather than proving that spinach alone prevents disease. The overall eating pattern still matters. Spinach provides magnesium, folate, carotenoids, and fiber. Magnesium is especially important because it plays a role in insulin signaling and glucose metabolism. That does not mean every person with poor glucose control has a magnesium deficiency, but leafy greens are one of the most practical ways to improve dietary intake. Spinach is simple to grow in spring and fall. Sow it directly into cool soil. Keep the bed evenly moist and harvest the outer leaves while the center continues producing. Once summer heat arrives, spinach bolts quickly and becomes bitter, so use succession planting rather than relying on one large crop. Eat young leaves raw, wilt mature leaves into eggs, or stir handfuls into soups and sauces. A mountain of spinach collapses into a small serving in minutes, making it easy to eat far more than you would in a raw salad. The biggest benefit may be straightforward. Every forkful of spinach is taking the place of something heavier, starchier, and faster to digest. Food 5. Swiss chard, the heat-proof green that keeps giving. When spinach gives up in summer, Swiss chard keeps working. That alone makes it valuable for gardeners who want a steady supply of low-carbohydrate greens through the hottest months. Chard provides fiber, magnesium, carotenoids, and other plant compounds being studied for their broader metabolic effects. It does not need to produce a dramatic clinical result to earn its place. It adds volume, color, and nutrition without loading the plate with rapidly digested carbohydrate. The plant is remarkably generous. Harvest the outer leaves and leave the center intact, and it can produce for months. It handles uneven weather better than spinach, tolerates partial shade, and often survives light frost. Do not throw away the stems. Chop them separately and begin cooking them several minutes before adding the leaves. The stems need more time, but they become tender and slightly sweet. Sauté chard with garlic. Fold it into eggs, stir it into soups, or combine it with beans for a meal built around fiber and slow digestion. Like several dark leafy greens, chard contains oxalates. Most people can eat it normally, but anyone who has been specifically advised to limit high oxalate foods should follow that guidance. This is not a plant that makes wild promises. It simply keeps producing exactly the kind of food most people need more often. Food 6. Broccoli, the cruciferous heavyweight worth the wait. Broccoli earns its place because it combines a low glycemic impact with one of the most studied compounds in the cruciferous family, sulforaphane. A notable human trial using a concentrated broccoli sprout extract found improvements in fasting glucose among some participants with type 2 diabetes, particularly those with obesity. That finding is interesting, but the dose came from a concentrated preparation. A serving of steamed broccoli does not deliver the same amount and should not be presented as equivalent. The ordinary vegetable still has plenty going for it. Broccoli provides fiber, vitamin C, folate, and compounds that support the body's natural protective systems. More importantly, it is a filling, non-starchy vegetable that can take the place of refined sides. Grow broccoli during cool weather. Heat stress can produce small heads or cause the plant to bolt. Give it fertile soil, consistent moisture, and enough space for the leaves to spread. Harvest the main head while the buds remain tight and green, but leave the plant in place. Many varieties continue producing smaller side shoots for weeks. Steam broccoli lightly or roast it until the edges become crisp. Avoid boiling it until it turns gray and soft. The stalk is edible too. Peel away the tough outer layer and slice the tender center. Broccoli may not work like concentrated sprout extract, but it does not need to. It gives you fiber, volume, and one more powerful reason to leave the refined starch off the plate. Food 7. Brussels sprouts. The mini cabbage people learned to hate. Most people who claim to hate Brussels sprouts were introduced to them boiled into gray, sulfur-smelling mush. Roasted properly, they become an entirely different food. Brussels sprouts are low in digestible carbohydrate and rich in fiber, vitamin C, and cruciferous plant compounds. That makes them useful for a meal designed around slower digestion and greater fullness. Their greatest strength may be the role they play on the plate. A generous portion of roasted sprouts can replace a pile of bread, potatoes, or another concentrated carbohydrate without leaving the meal feeling empty. In the garden, Brussels sprouts demand patience. They need a long growing season, so many gardeners start them in midsummer for a late fall or winter harvest. Cold weather actually improves their flavor by converting some stored starches into sugars and reducing bitterness. Give the plants full sun, fertile soil, and steady moisture. Harvest from the bottom of the stalk upward as the sprouts become firm. Cut each sprout in half, toss with olive oil, and roast at high heat until the outer leaves become crisp and deeply browned. A vegetable does not need to lower blood sugar like a drug to be useful. Sometimes its value comes from making the entire meal work better. Food 8. Kale, the green that refuses to leave when winter arrives. Kale is often treated like a trendy salad ingredient, but its real strength is much older and more practical. It survives cold weather that destroys most of the garden. Like other leafy greens, kale delivers fiber, magnesium, carotenoids, vitamin K, and a large amount of food volume with very little digestible carbohydrate. It has almost no ability to create a major glucose spike on its own, and it helps crowd out foods that do. Plant kale in early spring or late summer. Harvest the lower leaves and let the central growing point continue upward. Many varieties become sweeter after frost, so cold weather is not a reason to pull the plants. Massage raw kale with olive oil and lemon juice to soften the leaves. Roast it into crisp chips without sugary coatings, or add it to soups where it holds its structure better than spinach. Kale also offers something that cannot be measured in a single study: reliability. When the garden is nearly empty and fresh produce becomes more expensive, kale may still be standing outside. If a parent or grandparent grew a particular green every year, leave its name in the comments. Those old varieties and family habits deserve to be remembered. Food 9. Garlic, the bulb with modest but meaningful research behind it. Garlic has been used for centuries, but tradition alone is not enough to make a health claim. What earns garlic its place is a growing body of controlled human research. Several trials and research reviews have reported modest improvements in fasting glucose and HbA1c among people with type 2 diabetes who consumed garlic preparations consistently. The effects are not dramatic, and studies have used different doses and forms, so an occasional clove should not be treated as a treatment. Garlic remains valuable because it adds intense flavor without sugar-heavy sauces. It may also bring small metabolic benefits through its sulfur compounds, including allicin and related substances. Growing garlic is almost embarrassingly simple. Plant individual cloves in fall with the pointed end facing upward. Cover them, mulch the bed, and allow them to overwinter. The bulbs develop the following spring and are usually ready when the lower leaves begin to yellow. After harvesting, cure garlic in a dry, airy place for several weeks before storage. For maximum allicin formation, crush or chop garlic and let it rest for roughly 10 minutes before exposing it to high heat. That pause allows an enzyme reaction to occur. Cooking still changes some of the compounds, but garlic remains useful even when the goal is simply replacing sugary bottled sauces with real flavor. Food 10. Onions, the everyday layer underneath healthier meals. Onions rarely receive credit because they disappear into almost everything. That is exactly why they matter. They provide small amounts of fiber, including prebiotic fructans that feed certain gut bacteria, along with flavonoids such as quercetin. Some human studies have reported improvements in glucose markers after regular onion consumption, although the evidence is not strong enough to treat onions as a targeted therapy. Their biggest advantage is consistency. Onions become the base of soups, stews, bean dishes, sauces, and roasted vegetables. Used properly, they make simple whole foods taste satisfying without relying on added sugar. Plant onion sets in early spring. Give them loose soil and full sun, and keep weeds under control while the bulbs are young. When the tops naturally fall and begin to dry, lift the bulbs and cure them in an airy, shaded place. Raw onions retain more of certain heat-sensitive compounds, but cooked onions remain nutritious and often easier to eat in meaningful amounts. Use raw slices in salads and sandwiches, then use cooked onions to build flavor into the rest of the meal. No single onion will transform a blood test, but a food used nearly every day does not need a dramatic effect to matter. Food 11. Jerusalem artichokes, the forgotten tuber that feeds the gut instead of flooding the blood. Jerusalem artichokes, also called sunchokes, are neither artichokes nor from Jerusalem. They are the underground tubers of a North American sunflower, and they contain unusually high levels of inulin. Inulin is a fermentable fiber rather than ordinary starch. Human digestive enzymes cannot fully break it down. So much of it reaches the colon, where gut microbes ferment it. Research on inulin and other prebiotic fibers suggests potential benefits for glucose regulation and insulin sensitivity, although results vary and the entire diet still matters. Compared with a conventional potato, sunchokes generally provide far less rapidly digestible starch. That makes them an interesting alternative for anyone who wants the satisfying texture of a roasted root without the same glucose response. There is one warning nobody should skip. Large servings can produce serious gas, cramping, and bloating. Start with a small portion and increase gradually, only if your digestive system handles it well. In the garden, sunchokes grow almost too easily. Plant a few tubers, and they can return year after year, spreading through the soil. Give them a contained area, unless you want a permanent patch. Roast them until browned. Slice them thin into a gratin, or add small amounts to soup. The plant is vigorous, the harvest is generous, and the lesson is clear. Not every underground crop behaves like a potato. Food 12. Sweet potatoes, the carbohydrate that proves preparation matters. People hear the word sweet and assume sweet potatoes must be terrible for blood sugar. The reality is more complicated. Sweet potatoes still contain carbohydrates, and portion size matters, but their fiber, carotenoids, and structure can make them a more useful choice than many refined carbohydrate foods. Cooking method changes the response too. Boiled sweet potatoes generally produce a lower glycemic response than heavily baked or roasted versions, which become sweeter and more concentrated. A specific white-skinned sweet potato preparation, known as kayapo, has been studied in human trials, with some research reporting improvements in glucose control. Those studies involved a specific extract or preparation and should not be treated as proof that every orange sweet potato produces the same result. The ordinary root still deserves a place because it is filling, nutrient-dense, and easy to pair with protein, fat, and vegetables. Leave the skin on when practical, keep the portion reasonable, and avoid turning it into dessert with marshmallows and brown sugar. Sweet potatoes love heat. Plant slips only after the soil has warmed. Give the vines space to spread, and harvest before frost. Cure the roots in warm, humid conditions after digging so the skins toughen and the flavor develops. Blood sugar management is not about fearing every carbohydrate. It is about choosing better forms, better portions, and better combinations. Food 13. Green beans, the pod that behaves nothing like a bowl of dried beans. Green beans belong to the legume family, but nutritionally, they act more like a non-starchy vegetable. They are harvested young and eaten pod and all before the seeds inside become dry and concentrated. That means a generous serving provides fiber, water, vitamin C, and very little digestible carbohydrate. Green beans are one of the easiest ways to make a plate feel abundant without creating a major glucose burden. Their real power is substitution. Every section of the plate, filled with green beans, is space no longer occupied by fries, white rice, or another rapidly digested starch. For gardeners, few crops deliver confidence as quickly. Bush beans stay compact and produce heavily over a shorter period. Pole beans climb vertically and can continue producing for weeks. Keep picking them while the pods are young and tender. Once beans begin maturing inside the pod, the plant slows new production. Steam green beans until just tender. Sauté them with garlic or roast them until blistered. Avoid covering them with sweet glazes or canned soup mixtures that turn a simple vegetable into a sugar and sodium-heavy dish. This is not a dramatic superfood. It is a reliable vegetable that lets you eat more while asking less from your glucose control system. Food 14. Raspberries, the fruit that arrives wrapped in fiber. Fruit creates confusion because people often treat every type as though it behaves exactly the same. Raspberries prove why that approach fails. A cup of raspberries provides a surprisingly large amount of fiber relative to its natural sugar content. The tiny seeds and delicate structure slow digestion, making whole raspberries very different from fruit juice, syrup, or candy. Research on berries has linked regular intake with better cardiometabolic health, and their anthocyanins and other polyphenols continue to attract interest for potential effects on insulin sensitivity. That does not mean raspberries lower glucose on command, but they are one of the easier fruits to fit into a meal designed for steadier blood sugar. Eat them whole rather than blended into juice. Pair them with plain yogurt, nuts, or another source of protein and fat. Avoid sweetened raspberry products that contain more added sugar than fruit. Raspberry canes need full sun, well-drained soil, and a support system to keep them manageable. Summer-bearing and ever-bearing varieties behave differently, so choose one that matches your climate and harvest goals. Many spread through underground suckers, which is useful when you want a larger patch and frustrating when you do not. This is a fruit that earns its sweetness with fiber, texture, and enough complexity to slow the entire experience down. Food 15. Bitter melon, the aggressive vine with a complicated reputation. Bitter melon has been used in traditional food and health practices across parts of Asia, Africa, and the Caribbean for generations. Unlike many traditional claims, it has also been studied repeatedly in humans. Some trials have reported improvements in blood glucose, while others have found only modest or inconsistent effects. Certain compounds in bitter melon appear to influence glucose metabolism, but the evidence is not strong enough to treat it as a substitute for established care. Its bitterness is intense, which is part of the reason it is prepared carefully. Slice the fruit, remove the seeds and pith as appropriate for the stage of ripeness. Salt the pieces, rinse them, and cook them with strong flavors such as garlic, egg, or fermented ingredients. Bitter melon thrives in hot, humid weather and climbs vigorously like a cucumber. Give it a strong trellis and harvest the fruit while it is still green and firm before it turns orange and splits open. Because bitter melon may add to the effects of glucose-lowering medication, anyone using it regularly or in concentrated form should discuss that combination with a healthcare professional. Pregnancy also requires particular caution. This plant deserves attention, not hype. Its history is real, its research is interesting, and its limits matter just as much as its promise. Food 16. Asparagus, the perennial harvest that keeps returning. Asparagus does not need a dramatic clinical study to justify its place. It is a non-starchy vegetable with very little carbohydrate, meaningful fiber, and the ability to replace heavier foods. Its greatest advantage in the garden is permanence. Plant asparagus crowns once, care for the bed properly, and it can produce every spring for 15 years or longer. That is one of the closest things a vegetable garden has to a long-term investment. The catch is patience. Harvest very lightly, or not at all, during the first years while the plants develop deep root systems. Once established, cut or snap the spears for several weeks in spring, then allow the remaining growth to become tall and fern-like so it can feed the roots for the following year. Plant asparagus in full sun rich soil, and a location that will not be disturbed. Keep the bed weeded and apply compost regularly. Steam the spears lightly, grill them, or roast them until tender. A plate of asparagus has almost no ability to create a sharp glucose rise, but it can make a meal feel generous and complete. That is often the pattern behind effective eating. Not finding one magical ingredient, but building a plate where the useful foods naturally crowd out the ones causing the trouble. Food 17. Radishes, the 3-week harvest that asks almost nothing. Radishes may be the fastest confidence-building crop in the entire garden. Many varieties are ready within 3 to 5 weeks, which means a beginner can go from seed packet to real food before slower crops have even settled in. They are low in carbohydrate, high in water, and crisp enough to replace chips or crackers when you want something with bite. Because they belong to the cruciferous family, they also contain sulfur-based plant compounds related to those found in broccoli and kale. Do not ignore the tops. Radish leaves are edible when properly washed and can be sautéed, added to soup, or blended into a savory pesto. One row gives you both roots and greens without pretending they are two separate foods. Sow radishes directly into cool soil. Thin the seedlings early and harvest before the roots become woody or intensely hot. Plant small batches every week or two rather than one enormous row. Eat them raw with salt. Slice them into salads. Ferment them safely using a tested method, or roast them whole until their peppery bite becomes mild and slightly sweet. A food that grows in under a month will not fix blood sugar by itself, but it can make the next healthier choice much easier to reach. Food 18. Blueberries, the berry with evidence behind its color. People managing blood sugar often fear all fruit equally, but whole berries deserve a closer look. Blueberries bring natural sugar, but they also bring fiber and anthocyanins, the pigments responsible for their deep blue color. Large observational studies have repeatedly linked berry intake with a lower risk of type 2 diabetes, and controlled trials have investigated whether anthocyanin-rich berries can support insulin sensitivity. The results are promising, but they do not mean blueberries act as treatment. The form matters. Whole berries retain their fiber and require chewing. Blueberry juice, sweetened dried blueberries, muffins, and syrups behave very differently. The health halo disappears quickly once the fruit becomes a delivery system for added sugar. Blueberry bushes need acidic soil, consistent moisture, and enough sunlight to fruit well. Testing the soil before planting saves years of frustration. Many varieties produce better crops when a compatible second variety grows nearby. Eat blueberries whole, add a reasonable portion to unsweetened yogurt, or freeze the summer harvest for winter. Frozen berries remain useful and often cost less than fresh ones outside the season. The rule is simple: keep the fruit whole, keep the portion sensible, and do not confuse the berry with the dessert built around it. Food 19. Tomatoes, the garden staple that improves the order of the meal. Tomatoes are low in carbohydrate, high in water, and useful in almost every form. They do not need to directly lower blood sugar to improve a meal. Research on meal order suggests that beginning with non-starchy vegetables before concentrated carbohydrates may soften the glucose rise that follows. That evidence applies to the structure of the meal rather than tomatoes alone. But a tomato salad is one practical way to put the idea into action. Tomatoes also provide potassium, vitamin C, and lycopene. Cooking increases the availability of lycopene, especially when tomatoes are eaten with a small amount of fat. Raw and cooked versions, therefore, offer different advantages. Grow tomatoes in full sun, support the vines early, and water consistently to reduce splitting and blossom end problems. Good airflow and careful watering at the soil level can also reduce disease pressure. Eat them raw, roast them, or simmer them into sauce. When buying prepared sauce, check the label, because some products contain unnecessary added sugar. A tomato does not need a dramatic claim attached to it. It helps build a meal around vegetables, fiber, flavor, and slower digestion, and that is already enough. Food 20. Fenugreek, the seed with some of the strongest evidence on this list. Fenugreek saves one of the most interesting research stories for the end. Its seeds contain large amounts of soluble fiber, along with compounds being studied for their effects on glucose absorption and insulin release. Multiple controlled trials and research reviews have reported improvements in fasting glucose and HbA1c among people with diabetes. The results are not identical across every study, and the preparations and doses vary widely. Some trials used ground seed in amounts far larger than ordinary seasoning, while others used specialized preparations. That distinction matters. Sprinkling a pinch into dinner should not be presented as equivalent to a structured clinical dose. Still, fenugreek is unusual because several studies have examined the seed itself rather than only an isolated extract. The plant is relatively easy to grow. Sow the seeds in warm soil and full sun. The young leaves can be used as an herb, while mature pods provide the aromatic seeds. Toasting the seeds lightly can soften their bitterness before grinding. Fenugreek may add to the effects of glucose-lowering medication, so regular high-dose use deserves caution. It can also cause digestive symptoms, and it is not appropriate in large supplemental amounts during pregnancy without medical guidance. Fenugreek does not finish the list because it is magical. It finishes the list because it combines an old culinary tradition with enough human evidence to deserve serious, careful attention. So there it is. 20 garden foods that do not cure diabetes, do not replace medication, and do not erase the importance of professional care. What they can do is help build meals around fiber, whole plants, slower digestion, and fewer rapidly absorbed carbohydrates. The pattern underneath the list is simple. Use beans and lentils to replace refined starches. Fill more of the plate with non-starchy vegetables. Keep fruit whole instead of drinking it. Grow foods that make healthier choices easier to reach. And treat the strongest herbs and traditional plants with respect rather than exaggeration. I am Jack, and here at the Homestead Gardener, I believe some of the most useful tools for healthier everyday eating may already be growing in your backyard. Tell me in the comments which of these 20 foods you already grow and which one you would plant next. Keep growing, keep learning, and I will see you in the next one.